Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Close Enough Season 2. Now, Close Enough as a show is supposed to be about a married couple and their kid living in this house where they have to rent out rooms with various different people and their community in LA. And that's sort of what it is supposed to be about, kind of centered on this family and also be about all these crazy characters. And although I like the idea of that, and I like J.G. Quintel, and it feels like he's sort of, as I've said in many of these things, mimicked my own life. It's like him as a creator, someone I can always relate to, because when I was, before I had a kid, it was regular show. Regular show ended like right before my daughter was born, which was pretty insane, like in terms of timing. And then Close Enough came out after I was a father and my daughter wasn't like a baby anymore, she was a kid, so I could really relate to Close Enough, or so I thought. I was like, J.G. Quintel is gonna make shows until I die, basically, directly relating to myself. I think the whole idea of Close Enough, or the selling point of Close Enough, is not what I saw predominantly in season 2. And although I think there are certain episodes that are actually standout episodes of the whole show, or the 2 seasons so far at least, and the core concept, and if there's a theory behind that, I think there's certain ones that did it very well. It gets too into the other characters than the core group, which is supposed to be Josh, Emily, and their daughter Candace. And I wish, to me, that's where the strength of the show is, and more of what we saw in season 1. And this seemed to kind of let go of that in a way that I'm not sure if it's that they felt they had better stories for all these side characters, but it's a little weird to go from like the idea of like an early season of The Simpsons to a season of The Simpsons where you're going through all the side characters and throughout Springfield and something like that. It's like going from season 1 to season 12 or something. Whatever. Seasons where they focus on, Otto and Apu and like all that stuff. And that's fine if you do that once a season. But when a predominant amount of the episodes or the 11-minute segments or whatever are not focused on the family, I start to wonder, like, what am I watching this show for? Am I watching this for the whole community, or am I watching this for what I actually like about J.G. Quintel's work? Now, I do think in regular show, every single person at the park gotten, their own backstory, and you understood all their stuff, and you got episodes exploring all that, but they didn't do it in like season 2. And although I appreciate that, and he clearly like makes series Bibles that have a lot of information on each of these characters, so they might feel like kind of thin characters, but he always has like more behind them than you'd ever expect, which I've always really appreciated, actually. And I do appreciate that he does that, because I don't think a lot of people do. But it did feel like this season was something that probably should have happened in if they got to season 5 and not season 2. Because it'd be hard if someone got into this and then go to that and be like, wait, why am I watching this show? When it felt like the thing that is the core concept, they sort of lost. And although like almost everyone who didn't get their own episode last time did, you have Alex, Bridget, Pearl, Randy, who is, in my mind, and maybe I didn't realize it before, but that's Muscle Man, right? That's just Muscle Man from regular show. I don't think everyone's like a 1-in-1 other than Josh and Mordecai, because that's the J.G. Quintel stand-in, but everybody else I'm not as clear on, but Randy is Muscle Man. It's ridiculous. I don't know if I don't like Randy as much as Muscle Man, but that's who he is. And I like some of these episodes, and they do go into like crazier concepts, particularly the one where Alex is writing Viking romance novels and Pearl is pretending to be the romance novelist. And I think the Men Rock episode, which is completely like a bizarre kind of thing. I don't know what J.G. Quintel's deal is with Russia and like Cold War, Red Dawn type of stuff, but it's very weird. I was surprised Thomas didn't show up in that one. The one episode I really liked, and I think the episode's talking about Josh, particularly like him and both his masculinity and his fatherhood and aging, actually works really well. I think those are some of the strongest episodes of the whole season. I really like the episodes at the beginning of the season where Josh gets shredded, because the opening of that episode, or the setup of it, I guess, him having a bad back and getting ripped and everything like that. A lot of people actually do that, particularly like when they have kids and they feel like they're out of shape, and that's like a real thing. He pushes it to a ridiculous degree, but it is actually a real thing people do. I like the idea that he wants to be a better person, and I think a lot of people, you're not just like, once you have a kid, you're suddenly a dad and you know all this stuff. There's definitely like growing periods, and you grow yourself, and I like that everything with the Josh character does that. As a dad myself, I really like that. But the one I thought that was really great was Man Up. Not only, he does this sort of a force majeure. I'm actually not seeing that movie, but I know the concept of force majeure. Instead of defending his family, he just runs away, which is funny. I think they made a Will Ferrell remake of it or something. But in that, he realizes he needs to man up and train and be better at defending his family. And then he's told suddenly they're going to surprise him after Pearl has trained him to be kind of like, make sure he's perfect at defending his family. And he ends up in a Die Hard type scenario, which is, in terms of like modern masculinity, I thought was really perfect. I think Die Hard is such a movie that guys who are, dads now grew up with, and their dads really liked, and means a lot to them about masculinity. So the idea that he goes from like being petrified and can't defend his family to actually being in a Die Hard scenario is quite interesting. I like that juxtaposition. Also, that the whole point of the original Die Hard is that he was like a regular guy, and Josh being in that is very perfect. I thought Man Up, in terms of the concept and the idea, or what you're kind of log line sold about Close Enough, that one is probably the best segment or episode or whatever of Close Enough so far. I really thought that was an excellent one. But as much as this does a lot with Josh, and even has a really great episode with Candace Sauceface, which I actually really love that one as well. I hope they do more with Candace. She's a character they haven't utilized as well until Sauceface, and I thought Sauceface was very perfectly done. I really like Sauceface. That was a good one. They don't have enough to do with Emily in particular, the wife, who you think is sort of a major character, but they don't, other than they have like 2 episodes with her, House Guest from Hell, which is obviously not so much about her. That's like the closest we get in this whole season, which I find to be ridiculous. I find her to be an interesting character in season 1, but she's so underutilized, and like mainly what you get is like she thinks Josh is hot if he does anything heroic, which is like, okay, all right, I guess. The House Guest from Hell thing, which had Heidi Gardner, who I like a lot, but it just was like, that's all right, that's not really about her. And then the Men Rock one was just like, J.G. Quintel doing his uber ridiculous, like, let's just push this as crazy as we can kind of thing, which is fine. But if that's all the Emily we're getting, she should be utilized better. And it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. Someone who feels like pretty integral to the show isn't really being well utilized, and someone who I think, you can talk about Josh and his struggle, and I get that that's where J.G. Quintel's coming from, not saying like take that out, but like if you're going to do him as much, I think you should do more with the Emily character, because I think that would actually be interesting. I felt like they were doing better last season with that, and they noticeably just sort of drop that character. And I thought that was like, it's not just that it's like, it's a little sexist, but also I think it is like a major misunderstanding of why someone would watch the show, but I did like they gave Pearl a lot more time. They gave Alex, and Jason Mantzoukas is amazing as a voice actor, so more Alex episodes is fine. I like that Bridget got her own episodes where she falls in love with a ghost from a couch after she ghosted someone. That was very clever. And even her getting over her phone addiction. I mean, they did interesting stuff with each of the characters. I don't think or Pearl having her kind of weird Point Break thing. Randy's episodes are not, particularly the first one about his like real parents and stuff, that was not great. But I do appreciate that they're illustrating this world. I think they've set us up pretty perfectly for season 3, but it does feel like I'm really not sure where this show is going. I'm not sure if it's sort of like running out of steam too early, or this is just an awkward season and they're gonna do something more interesting in season 3. I just feel like from what I heard about Close Enough and what I'd seen in season 1, I really wanted like a cool idea of like J.G. Quintel showing like what it's like being married with a kid in this day and age and all that stuff. And that's primarily what I'm interested in, primarily what the show is. Regular show, I think, mainly had Mordecai Rigby episodes, particularly in the beginning. And to like drop that so quickly, is not something that makes me as excited about season 3. I know there's going to be a season 3, and of course I'm a big fan, so I'm gonna watch it, but I felt like this was a lot weaker, and as much as I was very much recommending Close Enough to people, I don't think I'd say season 2 as much. I felt like this was sort of an off season. I think I'd see, get them into season 1 and watch the few episodes I liked, particularly, or the one where Alex is says that superhero thing in the Matrix and stuff like that. And I like its references, but I felt like what it's doing in the first season worked a lot better, and I think that was the more pure idea of what you'd expect from a show like this. And maybe it just lost its way with season 2. Maybe it needs to find itself a little better. I think there's certain things like the whole parents having a party thing, which is okay, I don't know, some of their parent stuff is I like when J.G. Quintel goes into these ridiculous ideas, and the parent party one I think was a better one, because you get into the sci-fi fantasy thing after the parents want to get drunk and have their own party and not have to deal with kid parties, which I get that, but I thought that was a little more worked well with both what the show is and kind of a sci-fi fantasy style. But I just wish they would do more about the parents, because I think that's something we don't see enough about, and they're doing it in an interesting way, and they can say interesting stuff with it. And you could probably say Man Up is one of the best probably statements on modern fatherhood masculinity that I've seen in a while, that actually says something interesting and is fun and has explosions and all that stuff. But although there were highlights, mainly Man Up and Sauceface, and then that thing with the horse was just weird, but I was sort of into it. I do feel like this is sort of an off season for the most part. I'm hoping they can bring it back and just be the kind of traditional kind of family sitcom that I think I kind of need from Close Enough, and it's fine if they do some of those a couple times this season, but I think this was too many episodes that are the kind of weird, different side character episode. You know what I mean? If you're going to do that, I wouldn't mind if it was of the 2 cartoons in an episode, one is Josh and Emily, or Josh or Emily, or Josh, Emily, or Candace, or something like that, and the other one was everybody else. I'd be totally cool with that. But the fact they're doing as much as they are, and I understand last season they couldn't do as much of that, just didn't really, I think, work overall, because it kind of made me question why am I here? And that's something you're not supposed to be doing till season 7 or something, when they've run out of ideas and they're well, how come we haven't done anything with this person? It just felt like they went to that too early, and I hope that J.G. Quintel's able to maybe rein it in a little more. It's interesting we got a season like this so early, makes me have a little bit of caution, but I guess we'll see what happens from here. It was pretty good at its regular kind of very relatable show premise, but I guess with this season, it really just wasn't close enough. So if you have seen Close Enough Season 2 and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.